Stop edging if you want to be successful with semen retention. What do I mean by edging? I mean constantly peeking, constantly looking at those IG girls, at certain not safe for work subreddits, constantly thinking about it, constantly keeping the thought of porn, of relapsing alive in your mind, constantly looking at those YouTube thumbnails, lingering for a few seconds extra when you see a pretty girl on your phone. Not in real life, but even in real life too, when you're just kind of like staring and looking. All of that I would consider edging. Those things literally keep porn alive in your reality, in your conscious, in your subconscious mind. You're keeping it alive. It's like you want to lose weight, but you keep candy in the pantry. You keep chocolates and sweets in the pantry. It's like you're leaving temptation right there. You're allowing temptation to exist in your life because you're constantly feeding it your attention. And remember, where our attention goes, our energy flows. So our energy, our mental bandwidth is going towards porn. It's going towards overly sexual thoughts. Not that sexuality is a bad thing, but in the form of porn, in the form of, pixels on the screen, when our brains, our sexuality is getting hijacked by screen-based stimulation, that is what's keeping us from actually going on long streaks of retention, from actually being able to have real intimacy, have real connection. Because in real life, in real sex, you're not just staring at a screen, getting a huge hit of dopamine, right? You're actually present. You're actually there with another person. You're actually like engaging all 5 of your senses. And arousal isn't just a big spike like it is with the screen, like it is when you look at porn. It's a slow, steady build. It just builds up through touching, through kissing, through foreplay, through even before that, you're on a date or something, it just warms up, right? It's like the oven. You turn on the oven and you have to let the oven heat up. That's what natural arousal is like. But artificial fake arousal, it's like the microwave. It just happens really fast. It's like instant. And that's just not natural. Our bodies, our brains are not wired to deal with that. That's why we hear so many cases, and maybe you've experienced this. I experienced this in the past where you're with a girl, you're actually about to have sex, and then it's like you can't get it up, or you can't stay hard, or you can't like last very long. That's because when we're constantly looking at the screen, we're constantly edging, right? We're constantly keeping this thing alive in our reality. We're constantly peaking. We're training our brains to constantly need that hit of dopamine, to constantly need stimulation in order to stay aroused, right? It's like if you're bouncing a tennis ball on your racket, it's like you need to keep bouncing the ball, otherwise it's going to hit the ground. That's kind of like what your dopamine levels become like. It's like you need to constantly keep it high, otherwise it's going to crash back down, because we trained our brains and our bodies. We programmed ourselves to be that way. We programmed ourselves to constantly need to scroll. Next girl, next video, next thing, next hit of stimulation. It's basically just brain rot. Porn is just a form of doom scrolling. And when we're constantly edging, when we're constantly just looking at girls on IG or whatever, you're keeping that shit alive. When you're constantly just thinking about it all day long, you're keeping it alive. You're keeping that neural pathway of needing overstimulation alive, whether you realize it or not. And so when you're constantly exposed to this temptation, it's a lot harder to overcome the temptation, right? You can't really get into that relaxed state, that present state, like I said, the natural sexual state of like feeling your body, getting out of your head and in your body and feeling all your senses engaged and really connecting with this other person, because you've programmed yourself to just be stuck in your head all the time. Your sexuality now comes from a screen, not from real life. And so it's like you don't have all that extra stimulation, and so you can't really get fully aroused now. You can't get fully erect, you can't get fully turned on, because your sexuality has been hijacked by porn. It's been hijacked by the screens. And that's why you constantly relapse. That's why semen retention and quitting porn feels so hard, because again, you're keeping temptation alive. And that's why you end up being overly restrictive and then you binge. It's like with food, you restrict everything, but then you still are thinking about eating the fast food. You might have sweets and chocolate in the pantry, right? And then so you're keeping that temptation alive. So you can only go for so long before your willpower runs out. And then eventually you restrict too much, then you go backwards and you binge. And you're just in this yo-yo dieting cycle. Restrict, binge, restrict, binge. And it's the same thing with porn. It's the same thing with trying to practice semen retention. And so obviously the way to get out of this is we need to stop peaking. We need to stop the edging. We need to stop looking all the time and keeping it alive in our brains. We need to let our dopamine receptors heal. We need to let our nervous system heal. We need to be able to calm down and relax. We want to be in that relaxed state, not in the state of tension, right? Porn creates a state of tension. It rewires your brain to associate sexuality and arousal with tension. But in real life, our natural state is sexuality and arousal and should be wired to peace, to relaxation. So that's where we want to be. So as best we can, we need to clean up our environment. We need to clean up our digital environment, install, porn blockers if you need to rely on that to help you, just give you an extra barrier. I know that those can be easily just worked around and stuff. I used to work around those all the time. They didn't really work for me, but it gives you an extra layer, an extra step you have to go through before you can just look at that content. So you have a chance to pause and reflect before you go and do it. But I think that's more of a band-aid solution. I think we have to look at the deeper reasons. Why are we doing this? When are we doing this also? Look at what are your triggers? Is it a certain time of day? Is it in the morning? Is it at night? Is it a certain emotion? Is it when you're feeling really stressed out? Is it when you're feeling very tense, right? Because it rewires your brain to associate tension with sexual arousal, and those two feelings get tied together, even though that's not our natural state. And you have to be honest with yourself, what are your triggers? For me, it was at night usually. It was at night if I'm alone, if I'm fatigued, right? Because when you're tired, that also creates a certain sense of tension from fatigue. And at that point your willpower is lower, you're not really thinking about it as much, and it's easier to just say, oh fuck it, whatever. You don't have the wherewithal or the discipline to say no because you're too tired to say no. Also, where are you? For me, it would be in the bathroom a lot, because that was my bedroom didn't have a lock on the door, but the bathroom did have a lock on the door. So especially in high school and stuff, when I was really at peak gooner mode, I was going into the bathroom every time after school, and I would lock the door and I would just be in there for an hour or something, doing my thing. So then that became a trigger. That environment became a trigger. Maybe some people do that at work. Maybe you do it in the bedroom, right? Find out where you do it often. When is your trigger? Where is your trigger? What are you feeling? Who are you with? Who are you around? What are your triggers? When do you do this most often? And then change your environment. Remove those things as best you can from your environment. For me, I stopped bringing my phone into the bathroom. If it was at night, I made sure that okay, I need to brush my teeth and get ready for bed and just go lay down, because otherwise if I stay up too late, there's going to be more temptations. So it's better for me to just go lay down, and then I'll just go to sleep instead, because at the end of the day, I'm tired. My body's telling me that it needs to rest, and that's the healthier thing to do instead of relapsing. But of course, we have to go deeper, and the deepest level is why. Why are we doing this in the first place? What is our root cause for constantly wanting to relapse, constantly wanting to go back, even though we know porn is not good for us, even though we know gooning is not good for us? Why do we keep going back to it? Well, it's an addictive thing, right? It literally rewires our brain to be dependent on it, to feel good, to feel those hits of dopamine. Dopamine is the feel-good chemical. And it rewires our brain to constantly need that stimulation from the Instagram, from the websites, from the subreddits, to feel normal. It gets to a point where your dopamine just kind of dips unless you're consuming the substance, unless you're consuming the content, and then your dopamine goes back up. But then when you stop, then it just slowly goes back down, and you're just on this roller coaster. And this is really bad for your brain. We're not supposed to be having this constant roller coaster of dopamine. It needs to be just steady. This is natural. When it's just steady, you're getting dopamine from real life. You're getting dopamine from actually accomplishing goals, actually working hard, actually doing things in real life and achieving things. That's what dopamine is meant to do. It's supposed to be our natural reward system for doing things that are good for us. But instead we go onto these screens, and like I said, they hijack our brains, and now we don't need to put in any effort. We can just look up the website and get a chemical nuke going off in our brain, a nuclear bomb of dopamine just frying our whole system. And it's only when you stop and you go on a nice little streak and you take a break and then you go back, you realize, oh wow, this is way too much. This is way too overstimulating. It's like when you cut out sugar for a little bit and then you eat some really sweet candy or like cake or something that used to taste really good, and you're like, oh my God, this is too sweet. There's too much sugar in this. It's because we get used to the overstimulation. We get used to too much sugar. We get used to watching porn all the time, that our bodies think it's normal. It's not until we take a step back and actually give our brains and our nervous systems time to heal that we realize, oh, this is terrible for me. A lot of times the why is straight up just boredom. I think 90% of the time for majority of people, it is just boredom. We're just used to being stimulated all the time, right? You know, like we always go on our phones when there's just a lull in the conversation or we're waiting in line, or even like if we're at a red light, we'll just grab our phone and start scrolling. There's nothing we're even looking for. We're just so used to being stimulated and just looking at our phones that we just do that without thinking. It becomes an unconscious habit. And we're just training our brains over and over to constantly need stimulation. We can't even sit still and like focus on anything. That's why our attention spans have become like lower than goldfish. It's like 8 seconds or something. Most of you probably aren't even at this point in the video. Most of you probably don't even have the attention span to get this far into the video, because that's what porn and all these other things have done to us. We can't sit down and focus. We can't sit down and actually achieve something. People want, short form content, but then even then, you make a short form content that's like 30 seconds long and people can't even sit there for 30 seconds and watch that. We just constantly need to scroll, or just training our brains to be like stupid, basically. Like we're literally losing brain cells. We're losing our intelligence because we can't focus. We can't memorize anything. We can't actually learn anything because we just constantly need hits of stimulation. Otherwise we feel bad. And that's exactly why we keep relapsing. That's exactly why we keep going back to porn. Not because we actually want to watch other people have sex. We don't desire that. Most of us don't desire that. But what we want is stimulation, and escape from the boredom, and escape from stress, and escape from strong emotions. And porn is just simply an unhealthy coping mechanism. So cut out the edging is the point of this video. Stop keeping it alive. When you committed to yourself that you want to quit this, you want to get this out of your life, you don't want to do this anymore, you can't then keep it alive. You can't then give yourself a backdoor to where you can like go and relapse and go back to your old ways. No, that has to be done. You have to have that identity level shift. Like, this is not who I am anymore. This is not what I do. This is not the life that I want to live. I want to connect with people intimately in real life. I don't want to connect with pixels on a screen. I don't want to release my energy to pixels on a screen. I don't want to watch other people have sex. I don't want to cuck myself and watch some other dude smash the girl that I find attractive. You know what I mean? Why would you want that? If you respect yourself at all, why would you want that? So stop keeping it alive. Stop keeping it in your environment. Clean up your environment. Know what your triggers are. Know when you're triggered. Know where you get triggered. Avoid those environments or change those environments. Change what you're doing at that time of day. Look at why you're doing it. What emotions are you trying to escape from? Usually it's boredom, it's stress, something of that nature. Why are you trying to escape? Why can't you just sit with that? Try sitting with that for just 5 minutes and just see how it feels. Actually notice how you feel. Actually pay attention to your emotions. We don't even pay attention to our own emotions anymore. We don't even know how we feel or why we feel it. That's why we can't even understand ourselves anymore, and then we can't understand other people. That's why we can't have good conversations anymore. That's why you can't connect with people anymore. That's why you can't get laid. That's why you go back to porn. You see, it all connects. Like, it just throws you deeper into the negative cycle. You watch porn, you get worse at connecting with people, and then you can't get laid, so then you just watch more porn. You literally become porn sexual. Your sexuality is now just you getting aroused by watching other people have sex on a screen. You gotta ask yourself, is that who you wanna be? Is that the life you wanna live? Because for me, the answer was no. That's why I'm here making these videos, practicing semen retention, and sharing what I've learned about it. And if you made it this far into the video, congratulations. You have an attention span greater than that of a goldfish. I don't care about trying to make these videos super like Mr. Beast style or whatever, like trying to keep you engaged with tons of crazy edits. There's some editing, of course. Shout out to my editors. They do a great job. But no, this is about us calming down, calming our brains down, calming our nervous systems down. We're not here to brain rot ourselves. This content is not for you to get brain rot. This content is for you to actually learn something and then stop watching so much content so you can actually live your life in real life and not on the screen. So thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. If you made it this far, comment what you thought of the video. Comment how long your streak is currently on retention. Comment why you want to practice retention. Comment why you want to quit porn if you've made it this far into the video. And I appreciate you and I love you. Thank you for watching. I hope to see you in the next video.